Hello, and welcome to Opening the Door to the Unknown. I'm your host, Dr. Clark Schmidt, or Magus 1100. Well, I'm going to keep quiet for just about a minute and you can hear what's going on outside. So, we are getting some rain. And I do mean some rain. They figure about maybe in this part of northern Wisconsin, northern Florida, 12 to 15, excuse me, 12 to 15 inches. So within the next few days. So stuck, you might say. Won't be able to do anything besides staying in the studio here, which is all right. You can do a lot of studying. Talk about studying. I know I haven't been on for a while, but I've been taking care of some medical matters that has concerned my doctor and myself, and I hope that everything turns out a little bit differently. But I won't know until I have more tests until I have more tests done. Besides that, as they say, is you can't worry about the milk since it hasn't been spilt yet. So, like I said, just gotta wait to what my doctor for type of procedures that he's going to recommend. Anyhow, I like to say also is that I did make a mistake. Um, what I mentioned is that L. Ron Hubbard and Jack Parsons did the Babylon working in 1947. Actually, it was in 1946, but in 47, in the beginning of June, when Kenneth Arnold first saw, I'm going to definitely call it a fleet because anything more than two, especially vehicles, is classified to me as a fleet. So a fleet of what he termed was flying saucers when he was flying past Mount Rainier. And this is when Parsons thought that doing the Babylon working in 46 caused a dimensional door, if you will, to have open to allow these visitors to come in to our plane of into our plane of existence. Uh, but here's the thing, though. Parsons could be right when he said like an opening a door uh, from another dimensional plane of existence into ours. It seems that if one really thinks about it, that a wormhole could be a dimensional doorway. Um, and this is where we have our visitors, especially visitors that supposedly come from Andromeda, the Pleiades, the Zeta Rectili 1 and 2 in Draco system, because it would seem that it would be almost impossible, to my way of thinking, for UFOs to be traveling at that speed, especially if we're talking about at the speed of light. I mean, unless they're in the Star Trek, get into the Star Trek mode where you're at warp 1 to warp 8. and whatever they classified a warp as, and I don't remember watching all Star Trek TV programs and the movies. They actually talk about how fast a warp one, warp two, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 is. So I'm assuming that they do travel in a wormhole, which would make it a lot quicker for them to get here as to make that visitation, or they'll have already that they are already been here for eons of time, and they like to take a drive at night like we like to take a drive. Maybe not at, I think it's more that the sightings are definitely more at night than it is in the daytime. So let's just assume that our visitors have parking lots, UFO parking lots someplace, and when they want to take a drive, they just go to the parking lot, get into their vehicle, and off they go to where the sightings are noticed. So there's many different ways that one can. There are many different ways that one can look at that. Okay, so that's just my theory, my hypothesis, theory and hypothesis. All right. Okay. Now that I mentioned these little facts, I'm going to talk about today UFO contactees from the 50s until the early and late 90s. Now, I'm not going to tell you each one. That could take up a lot of time. But I just will mention just a little bit, give you a blurb, as they say. Okay, like on a blurb on a jacket cover for a book, for an example, it just gives you a little bit of what the author, who the author is, and what the book is about. Okay, but I feel is that Aleister Crowley was actually the first person to have a visitation of a close encounter of the third kind back in 19 when he met an alien, a gray, that he called Ram, in his hotel room in New York City as performing a particular ritual. And when he drew the picture of Lam, it looks exactly like a gray from Zeta Reticuli 1. Again, he had another visitation, you might say, from another gray who called itself AWAS. But if you say it real slow, I was. Now, what did that mean? I was. Does it mean that we were seated, as what some UFOologists believe, where we actually came from the stars? If that's true, then you can't believe in God per se. The only thing you can believe in with God is that God had to create the people who seeded us here on planet Earth billions of years ago. And so that would knock out religion. So that would completely knock out religion. All right, and I doubt that the church wants to be knocked out of the ballpark, especially when the churches have control over have control over the parishioners. Now, when AWAS contacted Crawley, he was doing through advice from automatic handwriting on the book of the law when he was in charge of the OT of not just the OTO, but also with Thelema. Okay, going back to I think it was back in the 20s, late 20s, I think. All right, but anyways, that's who I feel had the first. That's who I feel had the first contact with the CE3. Now it's just like the first photo that was taken was by that ship's yeoman that just happened to have a camera, and all of a sudden he snapped a picture of a unidentified flying object one night as he was standing out on deck on the ship that he was on. Or it was just like the second photo of that young Massachusetts woman who claims that she took a photograph and at the same time not only captured a UFO, but the occupant within the UFO itself. But that would still be classified as a CE1 for the yeoman and also for this woman in Massachusetts, again compared to Crawley that actually had a CE3. Okay. The 50s was always, the 50s, you might say, is when Elvis came out. You had the beginning of, you had the Beatniks, you had James Dean, you had, Jack Kerouac, who was writing his travels while he was on the road. You also had Allen Ginsberg, let's see, the Hells Angels. So actually, the 50s was really a shake-up time. We were just about 5 years out of a major world war. We had Roswell. We had Jack Parsons doing his little thing with L. Ron Hubbard. You had a lot of things going on in the 50s, and your Eisenhower Eisenhower became, you had a general named Ike Eisenhower, who everybody liked, that became president. And so, like I said, the 50s was really shaken. People always thought is that the 60s was shaken because of Woodstock back in '69. But I would have to say is that if it wasn't for the major shakeup that was going on in the 50s, you would not have the 60s like with the Beatles or the Rolling Stones or the Animals or with the British invasion, plus also with the new rock stars, I should say the new up-and-coming rock stars of the 60s, and also again with Woodstock back in '69. Um, so the '50s were how should I say, again, really was really rocking. Um, and of course, people were still seeing or experiencing, I should say, um, UFOs. But this time, instead of just Aleister Crowley having a close encounter, there was other people. There was also other people that were experiencing CE3s instead of just CE1s or CE or CE2s. Um, so just give me a second here. There we go. Okay, got it. So anyhow, like I said, is that we did have a lot of we did have a lot of contacts. All right. And the contacts back in the system, in the contacts back in the '50s classified these people coming down from the heavens as space brothers. All right. Um, Even back in not even back in the '90s when you had people channeling again, when you had people channeling space, aliens from the Pleiades or from the Arcturians or wherever, they classify themselves as, again, space brothers. Okay? But again, here's the difference, is that with the contactees back in the '50s, not only having a CE, a close encounter of the third kind, they also were invited to go aboard the space, the flying saucers or the flying saucers or UFOs themselves, and were taken, who knows what, to one of the planets where the Space Brothers resided. So that was again just a little bit different. Here back in '47, that we actually had two crashes, one at Aztec in New Mexico and one at Roswell, New Mexico. They said they found the bodies. They took the bodies to Roswell, and had them delivered from Roswell over to where? Right over at Wright-Patterson for Hangar 18 to wherever they went, wherever they else went. Okay, so now from '47, with the crash of finding bodies, is now we were taking trips on UFOs to their planet. Also is that the Space Brothers deem themselves to be helpers, to help us as one of their own, you might say. Like brother helping brother, family member. Okay. to keep us out of major problems, especially with the nuclear testing. And this is why I said is that there was back in 47, there was back in 47, 48, 49, is that there was a lot of sightings at military army bases and naval air and naval stations and especially at White Sands. Okay, so they wanted to make sure that we weren't going to destroy, you know, the world or have some type of rockets go out into outer space and do some damage out there. They always had the Space Brothers, always had the message of love. We love you, you love us, and it's still working with this. But as we all well know, it is that it's just not kicking as it's not kicking as it should. Okay. Um, um, so, who were some of the major contactees who were some of the major contactees of the 50s? Well, um, you might say is that, oh gosh, I'm trying to think of a quick name. A lot of them. George Adamski, for one. Uh, and Adamski wrote a few books, um, as well as oh, I'm trying to think. Like I said, there's just so many of them. Let's see. Let's see. George Adamski, Albert Menninger is another. Um, um, Jessup, guy named Dr. Guy named Dr. Jessup. Let me. Okay. Um, I should say Howard Menninger. Okay. Buck Nielsen, Ted Owens. Now these are not just people from the 50s. Remember I say go from the 50s until the 90s. Okay. The biggest case was Betty and Barney Hill. George King, Elizabeth Clare, Gabriel Green, Donald Fry, um, Wayne Pseudo Aho, Samuel Eaton Thomas, George Hunt Williamson, Gloria Lee, um, Travis Walton again, um, Dr. Carla Turner, psychologist. I mean, there's just been what's her name? Anderson. I don't know if you ever heard of the Anderson affair. Um, so there was quite a few of them. Now I really haven't kept up. I really haven't kept up like I should have in the last about 16, 15, about 15 years. So there could be quite a lot more that I haven't mentioned. But again, going back into Billy Meyer again, that was back in the 80s, early 90s. Getting to the ones back into the 50s again was George Adamski and Gloria Lee, um, George Van Tassel, George Hunt Williamson, Wayne Sulu Aho. These were the people that claimed to have met the Space Brothers and also were taken off into the ships and gone to visit the planet that the visitors came from, and they wrote some major books. In fact, see if I can find here of all the books. Oops, get my cookies. That oh, gotta find it here. I got all this stuff here. Let's see here. Okay, don't need that. That's later. Oh, the books. I read so many books when I first started out back in 19. I read so many books I could get my hands on to read. I forgot about Frank Edwards, who wrote a book. I did have a great conversation with Mr. Edwards before he died. Okay. Which I thought was very interesting, because Mr. Edwards was a radio personality back then, and he had a great following. He really did. See, if I don't write this stuff down, sometimes I forget, and listen. I'd be the one to admit that sometimes my memory is just I'm just at my age, I'm just kind of forget things once in a while, so I have to write things down. Now I just can't seem to find, like I said. Just 1 minute. Okay. Okay, we'll have to be talking about that in a minute with Flying Saucer Review. Let me see here. Oh, for crying out loud. Should always have the stuff right in front of me. Probably is right in front of me, and I'm just missing it. Well, anyways, with George Van Tassel, it just came to me with one of them. George Van Tassel wrote a book called Inside the Flying Saucers, and I thought that was a very interesting read, when he talks about when he's doing the traveling and also the people that resided in the craft itself, and where actually he went on one of his many journeys, supposedly. And like I said, with Frank Edwards, well, this Flying Saucer Review, so I don't need that. Well, I just wrote down all the books. I could just whip them off like that. But I'm just seem to having a problem here that I just can't find what I'm looking for to give you some of the books. I don't know if you ever listen to George Norrie. He puts me to sleep at night. Thank goodness I never sleep, because I have insomnia, And sometimes, if you listen to him, is that he kind of goes through this as well. I guess all radio person. I guess all radio personnel. I guess all radio personalities. Well, I'll be damned. All radio personalities do that. Okay, these are the last two here. So let's see. Okay, there's just one more piece of paper. I hope I didn't throw it away. Well, I just can't remember. I mean, you know, I just can't seem to find what I'm looking for here for the books I wanted to. For the books I wanted to get. Oh, no, wait a minute. Let's look at these here. One more. Just give me one more minute here. I might have I forgot here. This is crazy. I hate this because then I have to backtrack myself. When we talked about that. Oh, here, there, found them. Okay. Next time I'll be more prepared when I can just go when I'm looking for it here, as to help me out of what I want to say. Okay. Like I said, I did a lot of reading back in the in the late '60s. When I belonged to UFOIC, because I was a very avid reader. I loved reading books, anything I could get my hands on, that I would read, like Doc Savage series, and you name it. Especially like a lot of war, Flying Aces type of books for World War II. But anyways, let me not digress here, okay? Okay, again with Harold Meniger wrote a book called From Outer Space to You. Again, that was when he came aboard a UFO, and the Space Brothers said he was picked as one of the contactees to tell people is that other civilizations did exist from outer space. So that's the reason why he titled the book From Outer Space to You. Inside from George Adamski, Inside the Flying Saucers. The Strange Case of Val Thor. I'm going to be talking about Val Thor and Dr. Frank Strange's in just a minute, okay? But there was a book by Gray Barker, who I'll be talking about in just a minute as well. They Knew Too Much About Flying Saucers, again, by Gray Barker. The White Sands Incident was a very good book by Donald Fry. White Sands again was the testing ground. In fact, I still think it is for atomic weapons. You might say, with the atomic bomb. Also going with the hydrogen bomb, unless they changed it. Again, Strangers at the Pentagon by Frank Stranges. Again with Val Thor. So actually, Val Thor was I classify him as a heavy hitter. Because like I said, between Gray Barker writing a book on Thor, and Strangers with Val Thor. Val Thor is a heavy hitter. Okay. Um, so since I've been mentioning Val Thor a few times, let me get into Val Thor here real quick. I think that you're going to find this really interesting because, like I said, I did have a few talks in person with Dr. Frank Stranges. And it goes something like this, is that back in the 50s, is that Frank Stranges was a minister, and he went to visit the Pentagon. I forget just the reason why at this time, but anyways, is that somebody, a friend of his, or not, well, not actually a friend, but somebody from the Pentagon, was it from the Pentagon? I think, no, wait a minute, it was from Howard Menninger. That's right, there we go. Is that Howard Menninger was talking to strangers, and he said, and Howard said to Frank, is that he knew somebody that he met, a gentleman named Val Thor. And so this kind of perked up Strangers a little bit. And he said, well, who the hell is this Val Thor? And Menninger said is that he was a Venetian that's been down here living on his flying saucer out in the desert, I think in Nevada, the Nevada desert. And he wanted to introduce, and Menninger wanted to introduce Vale to strangers. Well, anyways, make a long story short, is that they did meet at a, you might want to say a cocktail, a barbecue. And Thor looked just like a human. You might even say like a Nordic. And Strangers and Thor got talking, and he decided to, and Vale and Thor wanted to have a meeting with some generals over at the Pentagon. Well, I don't know if you ever saw the movie The Day the Earth Stood Still. Okay? That was actually a takeoff of the meeting that was actually held at the Pentagon with the generals, with Thor and with strangers. And nobody believed Thor was a Venetian. Until Thor said, well, here, you can borrow my jacket, and you can do some testing on it. He says, do any type of test that you want. You can burn it, you can use acid, throw acid on it, you can do this, you can do that. And the material that we use for Venus, you might say, it's almost indestructible. Well, anyways, is that one of the generals got a hold of his adjutant, told the adjutant to get one of the sergeants, the whole chain of command BS. And they did the testing, within a few hours of the flamethrowers with this and with that and with this and with that. And they came back and they told the general that they did everything they could. They showed the like the suit coat, and there was not a burn mark. There was nothing that could have destroyed the jacket itself. So, anyways, Thor got back to Thor got back his jacket. Okay. Anyways, is that Thor came with Thor came with an offering. to help humanity down here, to help us down here. And some of the things is that he brought was, believe it or not, how to cure cancer, how to feed the whole of the world, and other things, and nobody accepted the offering that Valiant gave to the world, to the leaders of the world, you might say. Um, not one taker. Okay. Now I forget if he also, if Thor also went to the United Nations. That I just quite don't remember at this time. Um, but I think is that when I talked to strangers back in '97, is that I think he did go to the United Nations. Not Vail, but strangers did go to the United Nations and had the book when he went down to the General Assembly and said, "Is here a space brother gave me this book on how to cure, how to feed, how to," and not one country decided to take up the offer. Okay, and here is the reason: is that, remember I told you um, about Helen Belaski and McGregor Mathers, and with the mystery schools going back to ancient Egypt, and I said he always had three secret chiefs to meet somebody as to create, say, like the Golden Dawn or the OTO or Theosophy, or the other type of mystery, or the Egyptian mystery schools, the Roman mystery schools, the Greek mystery schools. Is you always had the three secret chiefs, and the three chiefs always came from the Himalayas, or the Himalayas, however you want to pronounce. Okay, and I believe, and I actually feel, is that these three secret chiefs were classified as Nordics. They look like us, they talk like us. The only difference is that the skin color is just a little bit different, and their height is a little bit bigger. And these people, the Nordics, if you will, or like Val Thor, were classified as the Great White Brotherhood. The people who really wanted to help, like I said, like the people who like George Adamski, or Menninger, or George Hunt Williamson, uh, or Wayne Aho, um, George Fry, any of those, in any of those third encounter, I mean, like Close Encounters of the Third Kind, is that they always say, like, Space Brothers. Okay, well, just like the three secret chiefs, Space Brothers, but working with the Great White Brotherhood. Now, on the other hand, just like you have to have night, just like I mentioned in my metaphysical lectures, is that you have to have a balance: daylight, night, good, bad, um, good, evil, whatever. Uh, Left, right, okay, is that you had the Great White Brotherhood, then you had uh, the Black Brotherhood. Who do we classify? UFOologists classify as the Black Brotherhood. You might be talking about those who are into world domination, the New World Order, who are being manipulated by the Dracos. Um, for an example, um, or there's another group, the like, they look like praying mantises. Uh, um, let's see, I'm trying to think. The Dracos are, no, I'm trying to think. Let's see, praying mantises. I'm trying to think of some of them. Let's see. The aviary. And I'll be talking about the aviary. Now, those are the really of the Black Brotherhood, if you want to talk about the New World Order. Okay. And I'm going to give you names, what these people actually do. Okay. So, anyways, is that that was about with the three secret chiefs with the Great White. Okay. But like I said, the 50s was really a time of change. I mean, really a time of change. As when it came to medicine, when they found for polio, I mean the cure, when they the cure for polio, for smallpox, um, TVs. But TVs actually came out in what 1948. But that was experimental. What do they call that? The beta stage. All right. But anyways, is like I said. So anyways, that you had people like Val Thor came down and tried to give us knowledge as a gift, being classified as a space brother. Not like the Dracos or the reptilians coming down here and doing stupid things, or like the Greys from Zeta Reticuli that did what they did with Betty and Barney Hill, with being abducted, for an example, against their free will, and having medical exams performed on them, like other abductees after the 50s. Like alien races like that, with the Black Brotherhood. Okay, so you had the good, you had the bad. Okay, so that was like the 50s. Now, of course, just like anything else, is that you had the skeptics. Well, naturally, you got to have skeptics. It's like you had skeptics in the metaphysical and in the paranormal. It's like the show me state, Missouri. Okay, if I don't see it, I can't believe it. And if I can't believe it, it's a hoax, and it's a fake, fraud, and phony. Even if they were themselves abducted and had some experiments done with them and then brought back, they still would say is I don't believe it, and believe it. There has been excuse me for a minute. There have been skeptics that have experienced that, and because it has, I'm going to use the word, fucked up their mind, they still can't believe what exactly actually happened to them. Okay. Some of the skeptics say as well, it's a military thing. Is that is that the abductions were either through the CIA or some other high security type organization, and there was no actual alien abduction. And a lot of them still believe that even in 2016, they still believe that. Even like with um, strike, even say with like with Whitley Strieber, for an example, he couldn't believe what happened um, to him, um, and until um, what was that with John Mack? I'm trying to think if that was with John Mack that well, not John Mack per se, but with trying to think of his name. What the hell? I think of his name in a minute. Um, oh, trying to, the painter. I'm trying to think. Anyways, I'll get his name. That actually believed Strieber when he had a few meetings with this gentleman. And like I said, I'll get his name. I'll get his name in a minute. All right. Or with Travis Walton, when he was gone for a few days, is that the authorities thought that his friends knocked him off and hid the body, and what they had to go through to convince the authorities of actually what happened until Walton Travis came back and told of his strange experience of being abducted, and he did blame himself. I mean, there was no doubt is that he did blame himself. I mean, people like Strieber and Walton were not like supposedly the George Adamkis or the George Hunt Williamsons or the Howard Meningers or the Van Tassels, okay, is that they were invited to go on the journey to where Strieber and Walton were actual abduction, had the complete abduction scenario, and they just didn't. I don't really think is that Strieber and Walton really wanted to, or even Carla Turner, for that matter, when she was abducted with the reptoids, is that I really don't think is that they wanted too much, like really too much exposure, like Van Tassel or Williamson or Oho or Adamski, when Adamski created the how should I say an organization that met at a particular rock out in the desert. Can't remember the name. But where he held lectures and meditation and all that type of stuff, and was selling like like souvenirs, just like over at Roswell, over at the Roswell Cafe, sells souvenirs because of the crash of 1947. But again, is that they again. I guess it's just human nature. Okay. to my way of thinking, it just has to be human nature. Some people want to talk about it, try to make a buck out of it, and others just didn't want to talk about it because it was something that actually happened to them and nobody else, and they just didn't want to really bring it out into the open to make them feel like being a like an outsider, a jerk, and have skeptics, trying to peel them apart like with onion skin. Okay. But after a while, I guess just like when with Streeter or with Walton or with Turner and others, or with Betty and Barney Hill, is that they began to talk more openly. They talked about more openly about it. You know, it's just like after a while you have somebody that you have a family member that passes on, and you really don't want to talk about it until you're at a party and somebody's having to beg and brings up, that, oh, your mother and, oh, your dad, your uncle was such great people, but then all of a sudden you just start talking, things are just starting to flow out, words, and before long you're starting to feel better, is because you're finally talking about it instead of keeping it within inside yourself, you know? So, I mentioned Gray Barker. Gray Barker, very interesting gentleman. He knew a few people. He knew Ray Palmer, who was a writer and also created the International Saucer Bureau back in the 50s. He also knew a gentleman named Jim Mosley, who I had many a talk with. Very interesting gentleman that told me a lot of things. Let's see, Barker Bender. Had a gentleman named, can't remember his first name, Bender, who had dealings with UFOs, and also what was called Men in Black, and that's going to be my next. That's going to be my next subject coming up, about MIBs. Very interesting spooks with MIBs. I've had dealings with MIBs myself throughout the years, and I tell you, you think if you watch the X-Files about with Mulder and MIBs, just about right. I mean, they are scary. They are, how should I say this? No nonsense type of, what do you want to call them? I don't want to call them people, but I guess that's what I'll have to call them for the time being. So anyhow, I would be talking more with UFO with abductions, and then getting with MIBs in the next chapter. So I know, don't wait with anticipation. Okay, it just does take me a while to get my thoughts together, but like I said, the reason why I'm late on this chapter was because, like I said, I've been doing some dealings with my health and with my doctor, and I'm still working on that. Okay. Anyways, with that, I will say bye bye.